Hey guys, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. So let's just get it out of the way. We're in a new place. Bookshelves are currently occupied. Well, the room in which my bookshelves are located is currently occupied. My aunt and grandma are staying with us for a couple weeks while they transition from one house to another, so I can't get in there. So we need to film in here instead. So I apologize for just the general weirdness. Let's talk about what is actually important today, and that is my June wrap-up. I had a terrible reading month in June. Not only did I only read one book, I didn't even like the book that I read, and it took me 3 weeks to read. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it and talk about the one book that I read this month. So the only book that I picked up was Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare, which is the second book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, which is like the third trilogy within the Shadowhunter Chronicles world. If you've been around here for a while, if you know my channel, know my tastes, know how much I'm obsessed with Cassandra Clare's books, how much I love Shadowhunter books. But this book, I hated. I did not like this book. It was such a letdown and a disappointment, and I was just, oh, I didn't like it. All I've ever seen is a glowing 5-star reviews about this book, and I was expecting to love it. I was going into it super pumped. I had just finished Lady Midnight. I was on a high. I was ready for it, and then I didn't like it. I felt like so much happened and yet nothing happened as well. Like there were scenes that were dragged out that I felt didn't need to be dragged out, or that were there that I didn't feel like needed to be there. And then the important scenes that I wanted to see more of were like glossed over really quickly. So I felt like it had a weird balance of it had what I wanted, but it was not in the right ratio to what I didn't want, if that made any sense. I was so bored. I was so genuinely just bored while reading this book. I felt like it was way too long. I didn't feel like I got anything out of it that I wanted to going into it. I did just post an entire spoilery talk discussion on Lady Midnight. If you want to check it out, I'll link it on the screen. But I had so many things that I wanted to see going into this book, or at least be mentioned in here so we could lead into it with the last hours, you know, never remember what it's called. And I just didn't feel like we got any of that. I do plan to do an entire spoilery discussion for this one as well. And I ended up giving Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's the first Cassandra Clare book I've ever not given 5 stars. And that is it. That is the one book that I read in June. I didn't even like it. Isn't it awful when you read only like one book and you don't even like the book you read? Let's go ahead now and talk about the TV shows that I watched this month. The big one this month was that I finally finished Pretty Little Liars Season 7. It finally ended. I have mixed feelings. If you watched the ending, there's a scene in the town square with the 4 girls, and they're reminiscing on the last several years of their lives, and it kind of takes you back to the very first episode, a very satisfying conclusion type way, and if it would have ended there, I would have been so happy. Every Pretty Little Liar episode has this creepy ending with A, and they had that as well. Even having that as the ending, I would have been super happy with. It would have kept it consistent with the rest of the series. They couldn't stop there. No, they had to go one step further. Include these new, younger girls that are in high school that literally had the exact same thing happen to them that happened to the original 5 girls. Like, word for word, it was repeated from the very first season. The likelihood of the exact same words and situation happening again is so unlikely, and it just made me so upset. It's like they had a good thing going and they ruined it. They would have just stopped it 2 minutes sooner. If I would have stopped watching 2 minutes sooner, I would have really enjoyed the finale. But aside from that, I was really happy with how the characters' lives ended, like how our 5 girls ended, like where their lives were going. I really got kind of like what I wanted out of the ending in that respect. I do also have to say that people who predicted this ending, who like went through the seasons and were able to pinpoint how this all like happened, I'm incredibly impressed. Had I not seen like fan theories online, I would have never had known about this. I'm so impressed that people figured this out, because there's so many loose ends in this show and so many things that just seem so glossed over. Timeline always seems to not match up. I also mentioned that I wanted to watch some Reba this month, and I did watch the first 1.5 seasons of Reba. I didn't end up finishing the whole thing. I really enjoy Reba, and this reminded me how much I do enjoy it. It's still funny and lighthearted and just like a silly comedy show, and it just made me feel good. It is a favorite of mine, and I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it before. before. And then I decided to rewatch One Tree Hill. I've only rewatched seasons 1 through 4, which I've done like a multitude of times, but I've never watched 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 because I don't like once they leave high school, and I don't like once Peyton and Luke leave. That's the real kicker right there. When Peyton and Luke leave, I was kind of done with the show at that point. But I decided to give it a try and see if I liked them better as adults now that I was also an adult. And that was totally the case, because when these first aired in 2008, I was still in high school. So I liked when they were in high school because it was way more relatable. And then as I grew up, the high school episodes were just so nostalgic that I still preferred them. Watching them as an adult made me appreciate these later seasons so much more because I identify and connect with a lot of their problems. I watched seasons 5 and 6, which still had Luke and Peyton in them. I'm glad that I decided to give it a rewatch. One Tree Hill is just like a comfort show. It makes me happy inside, and it just removes all my problems in life. Let's go ahead and talk about the movies that I watched this month. I only saw one movie in theaters, and that was, of course, Wonder Woman. So impressed with. This is by far the best DC movie that's come out since the Dark Knight trilogy. Those were so well done. And then we got things like Man of Steel. Let's not even talk about Batman versus Superman, okay? Does DC have a chance against Marvel, which I am obsessed with? Wonder Woman, I feel like, was finally the beacon that DC needed. Really enjoyed this. I love Diana. She is so fierce, so strong, and just made me feel so empowered and made me feel so proud to be a woman. And it was just rallying feeling, you know? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Everybody loves it. There's a reason. Aside from that, it has a really great plot. It has really great acting. I really liked the romance. Also, my favorite part was the fact that Diana was like this fish out of water. She didn't understand like the fashion, or that she couldn't carry on a sword, or just like the customs of the time. I love when characters are totally out of their element. I absolutely loved watching her flounder around in London. It was hilarious. So that is it. That's all I did for the month of June. I saw one movie, I read one book, and I watched a crap ton of TV. I'd love to know what you guys did in June in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!